You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers.
With Saya, Anisa, and Porama.
And this is the Year-End Yak.
Hello, I'm Saya.
I'm Anisa.
And I am Porama. Welcome one and welcome all to the last episode that we record this year. I don't know when it's coming out. It's probably not coming out till after New Year.
Yeah, I think probably it will come out in January.
Yes. So before we jump in, there are going to be more than one part to this year-end yak because we can never keep it in one episode. So I'm telling you guys this so you know that there is another episode at least that is going to come out.
Yay!
Okay.
Okay, where are we starting?
We are starting with trends and general thoughts on the year 2022.
Yes. K-drama specifically, right?
Right.
K-dramas, more or less specifically. We're so going to break this rule right on the first thing we talk about. But let's start with the question that is probably kind of subconsciously on all our minds, which is, were there too many dramas this year? It felt like a lot.
Yeah, I felt that
Yeah.
a lot this year. And I think it's like a feeling that's been creeping up on me as dramas kind of diversify and show up in more places. And, like even, there was like Cable in 2012, which also expanded the slate of K-dramas. And then like now with streaming and, there's like multiple different kinds of web dramas. I don't even know like which ones we can call web dramas. There's the mobile only ones that come out on the mobile apps. There's like direct to streaming stuff that also feels a little bit like a web drama. Like it's really hard to know what, and it's also hard to like put things in boxes. I know you were talking about this when you were deciding on the K-drama tracker and like figuring out which dramas kind of like
Make
which
it.
were eligible. Pharma. Yeah, because there was, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so listen, there are way too many dramas because not only are there dramas that are made by major networks, there are dramas that are made by very small companies, which are maybe airing on channels that we don't even know about nationally, but they are airing on TV. Some of these have weird episode counts, like 7 episodes, 3 episodes, a lot like drama specials, but they are not drama specials. They are by themselves an entire story. And it got really difficult to figure out what counts as dramas, like the thing that international viewers watch. So finally, we kind of arbitrarily decided that we are going to stay old school for, now. And we are going to stick with dramas that are more or less, like ideally, between 10 to 24 episodes. So, the 16 episode mark is the ideal one. We have included some dramas of like 4 episode, like Soundtrack number 1, because it was published by a major streaming network, which was Disney. Similarly, we have allowed like major streamed originals in the tracker this year. We hadn't done that last year. So, for instance, things like The Silent Sea is on it. And that's a big change for our tracker, but it's also expanded the number of dramas. I don't remember how many dramas we had on the tracker last year, but this year, just in 2022, I think we included something like 133 dramas. But that is, I'm telling you, I left easily another 200 dramas on the cutting board. And it was hard. But also, did you guys feel like inundated? Like you were watching a drama and then you felt like 5 other dramas have aired that you didn't even know about what suddenly people were talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. And also like, I mean, personally, this was one of the reasons that I was a little relieved to stop doing our monthly previews of, what's
Yeah.
upcoming, even though it was fun and we really enjoyed those discussions, but it started to feel
Too big to handle.
exhausting
Yeah.
and also like very difficult to, I feel like 5 years ago, because there were fewer sources of these shows, the sort of upcoming information was aggregated in one place, more or less. I mean, you might have to look in 2 or 3 places, but ultimately it wasn't that hard to figure out what was coming out and when. And I think it was partly COVID, because COVID messed up a lot of airing schedules and release schedules. But then also, like, there are just so many different platforms publishing these shows, and it's gotten really hard to know everything that's coming out, where it's going to be available. It's also available in different places in different countries often. And also, like, a lot of times there's either no promotion and suddenly something drops and you don't really know what it's about, or there's a lot of promotion and it keeps getting pushed. We're going to talk about one of those shows soon, but like I'll just say now, like Salon de Nabi, which was originally called like Fly Butterfly, which is the Park Hyun-sun drama. Like we kept talking about it on What's Up in Dramaland. And then it just never kept getting delayed, and then we forgot about it, and then it just like quietly dropped last summer.
So did that music drama. Was it Dear M, the one that had been delayed because of the Park Hae-soo stuff?
Yeah.
Again, dropped quietly and without fanfare.
Yeah, it finally dropped. I started watching it recently, and I'd completely forgotten that this was the drama that we kept saying, hey, it's going to release this month.
Yeah.
Oh no, this month.
But then it was indefinitely paused.
Yeah, Dear M and Salon de Nabi were both, and then eventually we just gave up.
And nobody even knew they had come out. Like, I didn't know Fly Butterfly was out with a whole new name.
Yeah, so I think it was like November where I was starting to think about like end of year stuff, I think. And I was looking at, you know how my drama list has that calendar view where you could see everything that came out this year. And I was like, wait, this came out in August? Like, I've been so excited for this because, you know, Park Hyun-sun, I love her.
Yeah.
That's the writer. And so then I just like binge watched it, and it seemed like nobody else watched this show.
No,
Like, I don't think
I agree.
anybody watched this show. So yeah, it's just been, I think it's overwhelming as a drama fan, and then it's like even more overwhelming as someone who like wants to, like, we try to give a pretty useful overview of like the shows and the industry, and like we try to know what's going on. I mean, at least that's how I feel, like as people who make media about K-dramas, I feel like we have to stay up on things.
Yeah.
And it's been really hard to stay up on things this year.
I have to say, once we hung up our gloves from What's Up in Dramaland, I never knew what was coming up. It was
Same.
It was just too
Same.
much. And same with like looking at the news and staying on top of it all. And I realized, you know how people talk a lot about being in a drama slump?
Yeah.
I was not in a drama slump. I was in a drama fatigue, like of total exhaustion. Like, you know how people get decision fatigue and stuff? Like I do a lot. That was just too much. And like you have this warring sense of the FOMO, like these are dramas I want to watch. But on the other hand, you're like, but I can't watch them. There's too much. Like, where do I start? What do I begin with?
I had the slump and the fatigue at the same time. So I didn't watch a lot of shows this year.
Yeah. I had a lot of like the shows that I wanted to watch. That list is about 3 times as long as the shows that I actually watched. And even the number of shows I started is probably longer than the number of shows I finished.
Oh,
Same
definitely.
here.
Yeah.
Definitely. I started and mercilessly dropped a lot of dramas, even though I haven't quite like marked them as dropped on our list.
Yeah,
Because that's
same.
like committing to a drop.
Yeah.
But I actually have dropped a ton of dramas. I think overall, what happened was there was a period where I just didn't want to start any new dramas. And so I kept going back to like watching really old dramas.
I
Like
did that a lot.
2012 dramas. And that helped. Like that refreshed Dramaland for me a bit. And yeah, I could finally start watching. It's only in the last, I think, 3 or 4 months that I really started watching dramas from this year. I caught up with a lot. But I also can't say that I have finished a ton of dramas. So I don't know. On the one hand, I get the fatigue. On the other hand, my actual watch list would tell you that, oh my God, I have completed a substantial number of them, so maybe I shouldn't complain about it.
You made us proud. You like held up more than your end of the bargain this year in terms of like how much shows we watched.
Also, I think you're more able to watch things casually, whereas like if I watch a drama, I have to be like 100% present for the drama. And then it's like,
Me too.
I watch dramas like their work.
Yeah.
But that's how I enjoy it. And if I wasn't able to do that, then it's like, you know, I'm not watching it.
I'm that annoying person if like I didn't catch one word of the line of dialogue, I have to like rewind it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just,
Very true.
yeah.
Me too.
Or was like, you people
Yeah.
are just crazy.
Mad.
For me, it was a big step to watch dramas without making notes. Because that's like also a way that I enjoy dramas is sitting there and whatever like I think while I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, this is an interesting thought. I know that's a weird thing to think, but
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about this more once we, dive into our personal
yes.
drama years. But I wanted to pick up on something that you mentioned, Parma, and that I know like both of you did, is like going back and watching older stuff. And this is something I've heard from other people, like on Twitter and, in our poll as well, that like they enjoyed older dramas. And like this is actually, you reminded me that this is actually what I was getting at when I put in the notes that I wanted to talk about like how streaming is changing K-drama, because I do think, and we've had this discussion before about like how it feels like in a lot of ways, K-dramas have been getting better and like they've gotten more expensive, they've gotten more sophisticated, they've gotten subtler in some ways. Since the three of us, we've all been watching them for like at least 10 years at this point, right? And like we have also talked about how like there is something in those older shows that felt like more raw and authentic in some ways, and even though they were like less glossy and maybe the production values weren't as high and maybe they were like more problematic, but there was like an enjoyment to be had. And I don't think that there isn't an enjoyment to be had now. Like obviously like they're still making a lot of really good shows, but I do think that like the character of K-drama has just slightly changed.
Yeah.
And it's like such a subtle change over the years that I didn't notice it that much as it was happening. And I do feel like there is, I mean, I'm having a hard time even putting my finger on what exactly has changed about them, because they're still K-dramas, they still do all of the things that we love.
Well, I think of it as kind of like the nutritional content. Like you're still getting the meal, but what sort of the various vitamin and protein and carb balance in that meal, that has changed. And like one of the questions that I would like to ask, but I can't answer because I haven't watched enough, is has the increase in the quantity of K-dramas led to a proportional increase in the quality? Or is it like the character itself of what those new offerings are bringing is slightly different? What am I trying to express? Basically, I think the line between like Korean film and Korean drama has been thinning for a long time.
Yeah.
And that overlap has only increased. So perhaps that sort of change that we're detecting is much more to do with that film character coming into the drama character. And perhaps that's not the thing that you always want from a drama, or it's not, you're not getting the same meal. You're getting a meal, but it's not the same thing.
And it's kind of a global phenomenon, right? Of film becoming more like TV and TV becoming more like film,
Right.
just because of the way that we consume media. I mean, I think the same thing's happening to the American television and film industry.
When you say Korean dramas are becoming more like Korean movies, are you talking about how usually Korean movies tend to be a lot of salt of the earth type storytelling? Like it's super glossy and action packed, some of these, but also it's really mostly about very regular people. Is that what, like, it's grittier and grimier and feels more real and has less of like the magic realism and flights of fancy that you see in Dramaland? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe, but maybe also, the thing is, I don't know what the right way of saying this is, but we've always talked about K-dramas being written largely by women for the female gaze, and Korean films being the opposite.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting a little less of that kind of storytelling in a lot of the new dramas.
This is actually a really good point. There have been a lot more male writers in Dramaland this year.
Yeah.
They're film writers.
Film writers have been entering Dramaland. Of course, now with like the bigger production budget, they get more exposure as writers.
Now that K-drama has prestige, the men want it.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Precisely.
One of the things that I have found this year, and I'll use an example of a drama that aired quite early in the year, A Superior Day. I can't remember on what. I would have to check that. But the feeling that I've gotten a lot from, because I've tried a lot of the new dramas, like things like Glitch and things that I can't remember the titles of right now. And I went away from them with a sense of, like, the things that brought me to K-drama and kept me there in the first place are things that have sort of slowly been ebbing away in a lot of these dramas. Like, there have been so many thrillers this year, but many of the ones that I tried, I didn't enjoy them.
To build on what you're saying, and this is actually the point I was trying to badly make earlier, which we scrapped, is that I find that a lot of the dramas, for instance, Narco Saints, I watched that on Netflix. There couldn't be a more West inspired drama. It was like a short 6-episode thing where this middle class man, he travels abroad. He's been told that, hey, you can make really quick money, but he gets caught up in this drug web, and then he sort of like it starts helping a Secret Service agency. But the thing is, it's not Homeland exactly, but it's the kind of story that I feel like I have watched, in American television, and I think there were quite a few dramas this year that gave me that feeling. Like I have seen Western versions of stories like these, and they were usually like the grittier storyline. For instance, even with Big Mouth, even though I enjoyed it a lot, there were aspects of it that was less Korean corporate corruption, which is like a deeply K-drama thing, and more like the slightly glossier American
hero story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe it's not that Korean drama is becoming more like Korean film, but it's almost becoming like Hollywood-ified after this sort of, because it's not that they have more of a sensibility of like global viewership. I think because K-dramas have always been produced for a global audience, but it's like before that was mostly an Asian audience. And now, on such a huge scale, like post Squid Game and post BTS taking over the world, there's this new feeling, I think, from Korean content creators that like America has noticed us, or that like
post Parasite.
And
Like, this is
post-Parasite
what
too.
they like, so let's make more of it.
It's like the West has finally noticed us, and so like for many years, Korean media has been really popular in like a lot of Asia and South America and Africa, and it was also like produced as a cultural export. Like that was like very deliberate from the beginning of like K-pop and K-drama. Like these were products, that had government, money invested in them. They had support, they had, subsidies, and they were designed as an export for the country, in a country that doesn't have a lot to export of its own resources. And so like, it's not that they're suddenly writing for others. It's that who the audience is perceived to be and who the audience, like the desirable audience, is like changed a little bit.
So in a sense, it's creating a product according to market demands, right?
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense, right? Like if that's who you're marketing
But is
to.
it market demand, or is it the production company saying we will only give you the budget if this is the story? Because that's happening in India a lot. Until very recently, Netflix and Amazon, but most especially Netflix, was just approving scripts of a very specific spec. And then, of course, like they ran out of money. Right now, Netflix India is in a crisis, which is something I wanted to talk about. Netflix Korea has been getting a lot of money to sort of put into originals, but also to co-produce dramas with other broadcast companies. And I absolutely think that this money comes with strings, in that they influence the kind of stories that are getting made now, which is why we are seeing a lot more of these types of dramas being made. Again, not saying that we are not seeing very K-drama type dramas. I mean, what was A Business Proposal? That was like quintessential K-drama.
And it was like old school K-drama too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're also getting My Liberation Notes. You're getting 2521, which you could argue is like peak K-drama, really deep writing. That is not West inspired. This is like, kya bolte, salt of earth K-drama. But you're also getting a bunch of stuff which, for instance, you have All of Us Are Dead, for instance. Like, these are good dramas. I'm not saying that any of these are bad dramas. But the more of these dramas that you have, Glitch is another one, which is very Korean film inspired, like Kay said, but Korean film itself is very West inspired. It not panders, but like it holds.
It draws a lot of inspiration from Hollywood, absolutely. And I mean, those big name directors are explicit about that.
Absolutely, and Glitch had a ton of references to previous Hollywood ET movies too. So it's like a direct reference, but. For right now, there is this drama that just dropped, which we won't be including in this year's review, which is The Fabulous. It's not as explicit as a Western version of it would be, but something like The Fabulous would just not work with K-drama audiences a few years ago. It's really well written. I've watched like the first couple of episodes, really well done and very K-drama-ish. But like the core content of it would just do you guys remember when they tried to adapt in what was it, Entourage? And they just tried to make it too Western. They tried to make it like a direct replica, and it just did not work.
Oh, that was such a bad show. Oh my god!
Didn't we have Call My Agent this year also, which was like...
It was very, very underwhelming. I started watching it and like almost immediately dropped it. Yeah, I agree. The point that you guys are making, which is that it's Western inspired, but not a copy. I think K-dramas have gotten better at taking inspiration from the West, but also making dramas that are more similar to Western TV and Western movies is not what we as the OG K-drama fans want to see.
But also I wonder if this is just a case of changing tastes among the Korean audience as well, and just the changing global media landscape that like has become so much more like porous and international, mostly because of Netflix.
Yeah.
Like Netflix single-handedly broke down a lot of barriers for people in terms of like where the content that they were watching came from, because they created this strategy back, like, I don't know if it was like 10 years ago, or where they were just like, okay, we're just going to license stuff. Like, we're just going to make our own stuff because makes more sense than licensing these really expensive shows and keeping them forever. And when they made that shift, they didn't just license American TV. They didn't just have Netflix originals, which weren't like all shows that they made, but they were like, exclusive. And they didn't just do that for US TV and movies, right? They did it for like content from all different kinds of countries. And so like people would just see that it was a Netflix original, and that brand made them watch stuff that they probably wouldn't have watched otherwise, right? And they also like the way the algorithm like recommends things to people. I feel like in some ways it's like creating more sameness across a lot of media than it was like 10, 20, 30 years ago, where like things were so domestic and specific. And I mean, Hollywood was exported all over the world as part of their neo-imperialism project of domination. But like other than that, like people had their local cinemas and their local TV, and it was there was export, absolutely. Like, for example, like Indian film has been exported all over the world for many years, but like it was still, I don't know, it still felt more niche and more like subculture-y. And if you were into like, foreign film or foreign TV, it was kind of like a lonelier journey. And now it feels like we're all on that journey.
Do you think that in some ways it's like a necessary stage of like the growing pains of not necessarily an industry, but the type of storytelling that this particular medium has? Like, storytelling has to evolve. The things people make have to evolve.
I think it also is like evolving because of technology, right?
I find that K-dramas now are a lot more socially aware than at any previous points. And one of the I don't know how to put it without sounding, I don't mean to say that they're too socially aware, but like at some point I started feeling like the urge to show that we are aware started interfering with the writing. Like a writer would have a certain thought that this plot can go in this direction, but like a very underwhelming subversion would be put in instead, because that A is subversive, and B, hey, look, we know that, society does these things and we want to show a different take. And like, that's fun when it happens and we squee about it, but then also you start wondering if like that is actively interfering with like the creative flow of the writer. Something else that I'm interested in finding out, but like there is no data, which is because streaming giants just do not release their internal data, is what the viewership of these streaming originals or all of these dramas that have like partnerships with like these mega streaming sites, what are the views on them? is it actually worth the money they are spending? Because right now, as I said, Netflix India is finding out that a lot of the movies that they or TV shows that they put in money into developing, they are just like stalling them right now. And what I'm interested in knowing is like what happens. Maybe it doesn't happen right now because, mind you, a lot of these projects that released this year were in production last year or the year before. So there was a lot of money that had already been put behind these projects. But what happens from the data of this year? We're probably going to find that out next year, like over the next couple of years, like whether it was worth it to put this amount of money into producing this many dramas, and what like having Disney originals, Hulu originals, and all of these K-drama originals on these streaming sites, how they actually help. Like, do they get subscribers to these platforms? Are the numbers high enough to,
Yeah. And streaming is kind of reaching that point of saturation where like a lot of things are just going to shut down in the next couple of years because everyone got into streaming, even like random companies that don't even make TV or movies because they were like, oh, this is where the opportunity is. But like, that's not sustaining. People are not going to be able to subscribe to 10 services. They're not going to do it anymore. And even like, I mean, you were talking about Netflix India, but like big US Netflix is not doing well. I mean, they fired so many people this year. Their numbers dropped, and they've notoriously been in the red for many years, and they've just like coasting because everyone thought it was like, they've just kind of been in this bubble of like, yeah, we're losing money, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. And I think they're starting to realize that like maybe that's not the case. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah.
So something else that's been happening in the streaming world is, like I said, like the financial models, like whether these things are feasible, putting as much money into streaming content as they have been in the last couple of years. That's all kind of coming to a head right now. And I'm sure we're going to find like more instances where like the reality comes rushing at us over the next year. But interesting things that have happened, not necessarily in K-drama world, but like in other worlds. But I think it's important for us to be informed. If you guys have heard about it, Warner Bros., they basically just canceled, but also outright deleted a ton of content, successful content, like highly rated ones that people were watching. Because they wanted to kind of write them off as losses and also wanted to stop paying royalties to the creators.
Oh.
And they basically like canceled their whole animation slate.
What?
To save money.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same studio that shut down Drama Feed.
Yeah.
They should, yeah. And I mean, this is on the film side, but it's related because it's like about their like financial big picture, which I think they're doing a horrible job. But like they also canceled Batgirl, which was made by, the directing duo Adil and Bilal, who worked on Ms. Marvel and Bad Boys for Life. I love them. I think they're great.
People were really bummed about that.
They canceled it when it was like 90% complete. It was going to have like a woman of color as the heroine, like these two Arab Belgian guys as the directors who like finally got to make a big budget superhero movie, and it was probably going to be amazing. And they found out that it was canceled at one of their weddings.
What?
Like one of them was literally at his wedding when he found out it was canceled.
Gosh.
And at the time they were like, but we're still making the Flash movie, which like, if you haven't heard, the Flash actor is a terrible person. If you want to know about them, like you can go read about it online. I don't think it's going to happen now, but at the time they were like, yeah, we're canceling Batgirl, but we're keeping the Flash. They just keep making terrible decisions. Then they like brought back Henry Cavill as Superman, and they made him like make an announcement, and then like
immediately
a week ago they were like, actually that's not happening, sorry Henry Cavill.
Yeah, psych.
Yeah, so it's just a mess. It's just a mess.
And poor Henry Cavill, man, he just had Witcher cancelled. Or I think he not cancelled, like he
left Witcher to come back as Superman. Yeah, I mean Witcher he was too big for Witcher.
I don't think it was conditional. I think he was leaving Witcher as it was, but like he was really hyped about coming back as Superman. But like basically they canceled everything. Like James Gunn came into Warner Bros. And was like, yeah, none of this is working. Throw it all out. We're starting from
I mean,
scratch,
I don't necessarily disagree with him.
I don't
But
either.
like it really sucks for Henry Cavill because I think he was thinking, oh, I'm finally going to get to do the version of Superman that I've always wanted to play, which like instead he did this like dour, murderous Superman. Like, I don't think he really wanted to do that from what he's said over the years. So I think he was like, finally, a happy Superman. And they're like, no, sorry, Henry, your time is over. You lost your chance.
Fun times. And then you have like what's happening with like Netflix anime, which is interesting. So a lot of animes are created by this public broadcast company in Japan, and they like part of their internal deal is that they don't show any ads. They don't have ads interrupting these animes. But Netflix is now moving to sort of like an ad model, like for a lower tier if you want to pay less. And the problem with that is like the Japanese company is like, yeah, not on our animes. So just like you have to delete everything that we have licensed out to you, because then you're breaking our agreement if you start putting ads, because they have no control over what ads are going to be played on these animes, right? So that is an interesting thing that's going on. I don't know if Netflix will be able to resolve it, but the reason I bring it up is because, again, like new revenue models affecting what is actually going to be on streaming going forward. And anime, a lot of people watch anime on Netflix now. Also, Crunchyroll has gotten more investment, so it's more widely available now as a streaming platform. So a lot of people are just basically just jumping ship from Netflix.
And Crunchyroll's like streaming experience has vastly improved since like 10 years ago when I remember trying to use it about 10 years ago and it was like horrible. And now like it's great. It's actually really, really great. And then they have like a comment section. So you can like watch the episode and then like nerd out with like 1,000 people in the I mean, it's a huge fandom, right? And these shows are like coming out on Crunchyroll weekly and people like wait and they watch them like they stay up until late and they wait. I mean, it's like there is still that
Group
live
watching.
community watching experience that's happening that they've managed to like capture, which like good for them, which Netflix definitely does not have.
No, I don't know how many people do Netflix parties. Like they always have to use like a third party plugin to like actually discuss the drama, right? But to have it right on the platform, that's smart. That's really smart.
And I think that's like one of the big things that people love about Webtoon as well is like you read the episode and then you comment and then they have like top comments and sometimes the author responds and then people like lose their...
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Okay, and finally, one other thing in streaming that's been happening a lot in India, which is, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries, which is like the number of dubbed K-dramas have gone through the roof. And not only have they gone through the roof, like you have local streaming platforms pushing dubbed K-dramas at their audience. So recently there was this variety interview with Priyanka Chopra, the Russo brothers, and Chris, what's his name? The Galaxy guy. What's his name?
Oh, Chris Pratt?
Yeah. Correct, Pratt. Never mind, that was not the point. The point is, I was a Priyanka Chopra sort of group interview, and she mentioned that her mom watches K-dramas. And I'm like, at this point, everybody in India watches K-dramas, and it's not the way we watch it. It's dubbed. And honestly, as a purist, I hate it.
Is that in
and
Hindi?
Because it's in Hindi. Because it's like the most widely spoken language here. It's easy for people. Like even if you're not fluent in
Tell me when they're
speaking Hindi,
Bengali.
you understand it. There are some places are starting to do Bengali dubs, but like it's not as widely available. But what I found really interesting was like I went onto this local aggregate streaming platform recently, and I hadn't even logged in. The front page was just K-dramas, like a wall of K-dramas, all of them in Hindi.
Wow.
The Korean option wasn't even there, which means that these dramas are specifically getting licensed to be dubbed and distributed in Hindi. They don't have the Korean language license. So I
interesting.
found that very interesting. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's also like a model that they've been using in other Asian countries for a long time, right? Like
exactly.
dubbing these. I remember talking to, there was like a friend who was from like Singapore or China or something, and she was saying that she had been watching K-dramas on her regular TV, or maybe it was a friend from Malaysia even. Yeah. But like basically these shows would get licensed and put on TV. And because it was dubbed, they didn't actually know which country it was originally from. They just watched it, like
Yeah. Agreed.
Interesting.
So that is happening in India right now, probably because of a lack of content that's really driving traffic to these platforms locally. They're just resorting to use K-dramas. And then, you know what? On the one hand, yes, dubbed K-dramas aren't what I would want everybody to watch, but fair enough, fine. watch K-dramas. They're at least like 900 times better written than a lot of content that's coming out locally. Wow, when will I stop ragging on my own country's content?
But I also feel like dubbing into another Asian language will
translate better.
It'll like get you closer to the original language than dubbing in English, for example, which is so different from Korean.
So a lot of C-dramas are also getting dubbed, by the way, not just K-dramas, but K-dramas are the ones that are really getting pushed. So the thing is, I'm complaining about dubbed dramas, and it's not like the dubbing is done so amazingly that you don't notice that it's dubbing. But after a while, you stop kind of obsessing over the not bad exactly, but like, okay, dubbing. And I'm watching this historical drama, like I watched just a snippet of it. And I was like, wait, the language, like this older Indian language that's being used in place of like older Korean, it actually works. It translates really well, right? Between languages. So yeah, I mean, better they watch dubbed K-dramas and C-dramas than adapt. My God, I've been threatened with so many K-drama adaptations over the last year.
Threatened. That's the right word, I think.
It's as if like, especially Hindi cinema industry has been going through like this crisis recently where they're like, nobody wants to watch what we are making. Why is that? Do people want stupider content here? Stupider content. What? That didn't work either. What do you want? It's the dumbest crisis ever. And yeah. Okay. That's done. Let's move on to the next.
They want K-dramas.
Clearly, they want K-dramas, but the way producers here look at that is that, oh, well, you want that story? I guess we can tell the same story, but based in Bombay. And yeah, totally translates fine. I mean, okay.
I mean, it's a time-honored tradition, right? I remember watching the Kramer versus Kramer remake back in the 90s, the Bollywood version, and I was just like, this is a thing.
It is a thing. And we have been adapting from Korean films for ages, so it's not surprising that we would reach to Korean dramas now. We've been adapting from South Indian movies so much, like Telugu, Malayalam movies for so many years. And I keep saying we, but like Hindi is not me. Hindi cinema is not me. I'm sitting way in Calcutta, which is like the Bengali heart of India. But it feels like whenever you talk about Hindi cinema, it feels like a wide spectrum, like everybody is Hindi cinema. But yeah, Hindi cinema has been adapting from South India for so long. And now South Indian movies and dramas are just like widely dubbed with subtitled and watched in theaters across the country, all over the world. And they are grossing like so much higher than like the recent big hit Bollywood. And Bollywood is just like, oh my God, what can we do to get money like that? Why isn't it happening for us? I have no sympathy for them.
I'm going to say I'm not sad for Bollywood at all.
Yeah, me neither.
For many reasons.
Which we should get into not
another time.
Not now.
Yes.
So as fascinating as this discussion is, should we return to K-dramas?
Let's return.
Yes. Okay, so we wanted to now talk about what are like experimental formats that have been revived. One that like jumped out at us, I think Anissa's the one who pointed it out, was the mockumentary style of dramas. There have been quite a few examples of that, right?
And so Saya brought it up and was like, is this a new thing? And I was like, I feel like this is a revival that we've seen before.
I mean, I remember The Producers was a new thing back in, what was that?
That was
like
new,
10 years ago now?
That was the first mockumentary style drama that I had seen in K-dramas.
Right.
So how is it looking? Have you guys watched any of the other ones? I mean, I've watched a bit of Law Cafe, and I found it refreshing because we haven't seen that style for a long time. It's been quite interesting to break out of what you usually watch.
So the shows that we thought of that, I mean, maybe there are more, but like we came up with a list of like Law Cafe, Salon de Nabi, which was originally called Fly Butterfly, Love is for Suckers, Our Beloved Summer in some ways, because it kind of blurs the lines between a drama and a mockumentary in its format, which like I'll definitely talk about this drama at length later on, so I'm not gonna like go into too much. But yeah, I think there was a lot of like using this as a framing device and reflecting on the story and like what makes a story.
I found it interesting that, for instance, do you guys remember Love Struck in the City? That was 2020, 2021. And how intensely Did either of you watch that drama?
No, I didn't see that.
I watched one episode.
Okay, fair enough. So they were like, each of the characters were more or less followed with a camera all the time, and then of course you had like inserted segments where there were no cameras and it was just like, you know, normal K-drama scene. But then initially in the first few episodes, almost every scene was seen through the lens of the camera, and the characters were very aware of the camera following them. So that is maybe something that didn't work very well with, like, I remember a lot of K-drama viewers at the time, domestic netizens and international ones, who were like, why is this? It's interfering too much with the storytelling. So I think what they did was they reeled that back in these situations. Like, again, Our Beloved Summer, for instance, does a really good job of like blending the format, like with like a normal K-drama scene with the mockumentary inserts. It helps progress the story. But other dramas like Love is for Suckers or Law Cafe only used it sometimes, and almost like out of the blue, you would suddenly have these characters sitting and speaking straight to the camera. And at other times, it was just a normal K-drama, which is like 90% of the time. So you had like inserts of the mockumentary format, but not something that was progressing the story necessarily.
Yeah. Salan Danabi was like that too. It's basically a like a regular slice of life office drama, and then you have these just scenes of each of the coworkers just sitting and talking to the camera and explaining like what their motivation was. And I think like there was more of that, like time-wise, proportionally, than I saw in Law Cafe. Although I only watched like 2.5 episodes of Law Cafe, I think there was more of like an emphasis on the mockumentary in Salan Danabi, but it was still pretty subtle. Like it wasn't front and center. And I think like that's a smart way to do it, especially because in the past there has been backlash. Like we mentioned the producers. The producers started out as a full-on mockumentary and people just didn't like it. Even though like I think a lot of people, I think international K-drama viewers really enjoyed, and I think it was really well done, but domestically people were just like, no, we don't want this. And so I think after episode 4 it was almost completely gone.
Oh really? I didn't finish that drama.
Me neither.
Oh, I watched the whole thing. That was like, IU was so good in that.
I heard about
she was
how good she was. Yeah.
IU and Kim Soo-hyun's secondary couple were just as good as the main couple. And that was 2015, by the way, the producers. Starring Cha Tae-hyun and Gong Hyo-jin. It's a good show, despite the format change. They were great.
There are so many clips of like iconic clips from producers that has been floating around on the internet, which I have watched. I almost feel like I've watched the drama, even though I haven't actually finished it.
It's a good show.
It's a good show, yeah. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is how this was the year where you had streaming services like Disney and Apple TV sort of up like the whole production and format game by getting into K-dramas with Pachinko and with Dr. Brain. And
Dr. Brain was a last year drama, wasn't
Dr.
it?
Brain was actually last year, but Apple definitely like upped its game this year because Pachinko was such a huge high profile. Like I think Dr. Brain didn't really get much non-K-drama fan attention, whereas Pachinko it's on a lot of people's like best TV of the year lists, like people who normally only watch American TV. So it definitely upped its game, and it had like, you know, really high profile actors, including oh my god, why can't I remember our iconic
Lee Min-ho?
No, not him. He's fine. But I'm talking
the American
about,
guy.
She got She got Best Supporting Actress for Minari.
Oh, Yoon Yo-jung.
Yoon Yo-jung. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
That makes
Sorry,
sense.
Yoon Yo-jung. I can't believe I forgot your name. She became like an icon, at least for American audiences. I don't know about like the rest, but like because of her interviews and her performance in Minari, and then like her Oscar acceptance speech.
Oh my
and,
god,
like,
that was so funny.
all the interviews that she gave when she was like on the campaign trail for that movie, like she's become beloved to a lot of Americans. And so like that also became a reason why people watched Pachinko, and Pachinko is also like extremely famous book,
an English language book as well, right?
Yeah, it's originally in English. So
a bit of a non sequitur here, but do you guys think that Disney has been licensing a lot of like the weirder K-dramas, like Link, Lovey Die,
Kill,
or Kiss Sixth Sense?
Disney is really weird because like there were some shows that came out on like Asian Disney, but they weren't available on American Disney Plus. And then like my sister was telling me that recently, like in the last couple of months, a few K-dramas have showed up on Disney Plus. And before, like we weren't getting any K-drama. Like I remember when Snowdrop came out, Americans couldn't actually watch it
Yeah.
legally. Like there was no way for us to, it was only on like other region Disney Plus. So I don't know, like I'm guess they had some kind of licensing drama happening behind the scenes.
It's difficult to get a read on what Disney's tone is for the dramas that they produce.
Yeah, it seems to be not at all cohesive. Like know
Yeah.
what a Netflix drama
Right,
is.
exactly.
There is a look.
When you hear it's produced by
Yeah,
Netflix,
yeah.
you have a sort of a general idea, depending on genre, how that drama's going to look, right?
I don't think Disney has a strategy. They probably just like saw that everyone went crazy for Squid Game and then they were like, right,
Yeah.
this is a money maker. We
Yeah.
need to get into it. And they probably just like bought whatever they could
Right.
get their hands on.
And the other thing
Yeah.
that I find a little disorientating, and we have talked about it a little, but the way that the presence of the streaming platforms has thrown out the K-drama rulebook or the manual for episode counts and the types of story. But particularly, I know episode counts doesn't sound like a big deal, but there is a certain comforting
Rhythm.
yeah, right, exactly. Which allows
Yeah.
you to understand the beats of the story, what to expect at what point. And when you get, there's no formula to it. Something is 7 episodes, something is 6 episodes, something is 12 episodes, something is 11 episodes. And you're just like, this is disorientating. But maybe that's just me. Because,
I
even
agree.
Netflix dramas do sort of generally cohere to the general K-drama model, even if they are a bit more flexible. They're more likely
Not
to go
Netflix
for
originals. Netflix
That's true.
originals adhere to the
Yeah.
international model of 8 episodes.
But then they have 6s, and then they have,
Yeah.
4s. So
But it's like the ones that they are distribution partners to, they are still adhering to the 16 episode model. But where this showed the most, the weirdness of episode count? Alchemy of Souls. How they turned something that was supposed to be a single season, 20 episode, into a 2-parter with a 3-month break in between, where the first part was 20 episodes, the second part was 10 episodes. And it's very clear that this was not what they had planned ahead of time. I did this whole rambly video about when I think the writers decided to extend it, and you can see that it was halfway through the airing because Alchemy of Souls was doing really well. They kind of decided, hey, let's extend it. But how old K-dramas used to get extended, where it would be
yeah, episode extension, except this time it was
Yeah.
a season extension.
it was a season extension, and
Yikes.
the problem with that is now the season is still ongoing, so I don't want to comment on the overall quality of the thing, but they had to restart the feeling of the story. It had to, how K-dramas have a thing, even with the darker, grittier one, where initial episodes are all fluffy and funny, then they progressively get more intense. So they got to the epic intensity in episode 20, end of part 1, and then 3 months pass, and then the show restarts supposedly 3 years later, and the tone has gone back down to funny and ridiculous, which is so jarring for anybody who's going to watch this thing later on. It will not feel like one cohesive story.
Yeah.
There is a lot of choices that they made, which makes no sense if you're telling one single story, which this is a single story, it's supposed to be a continuation. But there is this particular character, a secondary character, a prince, who is a very complex and interesting character. He's not the lead. But he got to, by the end of part 1, he got to a point where he made a very dark decision. And then we are in episode 5 of part 2, which is halfway through, and he's having this silly moment where he's like, well, the hero has been nice to me. Maybe he doesn't hate me. Why were you nice to me? And it's a really stupid, really extent. Wow, I said I'm not going to comment on the quality of the second.
Let's pause there then. Shall we?
Let's go back to what we were talking about, which is trends. And yes, it is interfering. Streaming is interfering majorly with episode counts, and that is sometimes creating situations like this.
That's what you just said about having really dark and intense dramas. I feel like it's also been a year of polar opposites in that, you have those very dark, intense ones. And then, in opposition, we also had a lot of youth/coming-of-age dramas and these sort of lighter toned summer dramas, which I didn't watch, so you guys should talk about them.
I agree. There were a lot of them. And again, this is what I appreciated about the smorgasbord that we were handed this year, is that dramas like Gauss Electronics, today's Webtoon, or even dramas like Our Blues, Summer Strike, they were so refreshing to the palate. there are years where you have like 4, 5 standout dramas, maybe more, and then the rest of them are very average. This was a year where a lot of dramas were above average. And that, on the one hand, overwhelms you because you want to watch them, but then you're like, oh my God, I just can't. My brain won't let me. But on the other hand, there are so many dramas. Like, if I just look at my list, like I have ranked them in my personal list, I have easily, like, the dramas that I have ranked, let's say at least 8 on 10 stars, I have 16 dramas. I have never had this many dramas that I've ranked this high.
A lot of take-home dramas.
And like most of these are dramas that I will probably go back and rewatch at some point, if not completely, but then in parts. But they were that good. So, okay, this is something that we should probably also hand to Dramaland 2022, is that even though a lot of people felt like they were in a slump, the overall quality of writing for a lot of these dramas were really, really high.
And there was something for everyone, right?
And there was something for everyone. Yeah. One of the things I was noticing as well is that we didn't, I mean, you said there's something for everyone, but I think maybe like there were less of those supernatural, high concept, not experimental, like speculative. Yes. There were less of those speculative type dramas. I mean, we had them.
They didn't do well.
Yeah. There weren't a lot of like high profile, really buzzy ones. You know, even stuff that like didn't end up living up to our expectations necessarily. You know, like the oh my gosh, what was the name of the Park Shin-hye Jo Sung-woo drama from last year?
Oh, Sisyphus.
Oh, Sisyphus.
Yeah, like even if it ended up disappointing some people or a lot of people, like it was a big drama that a lot of people talked about. We were, you know, like I don't think that there was like that kind of like sci-fi or speculative show this year.
Yeah.
But I feel like there were a lot of these like ordinary stories about regular people, whether they were office dramas, which we had a lot of office dramas, and they were mostly very good. We had, you know, you mentioned dramas with like a summer tone. There were a lot of youth coming of age dramas. There were these behind the scenes celebrity dramas.
They were fun.
Like,
They were very fun.
Those were fun. That was like there were like 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I think like there was a lot of like regular life on display. And I wonder if, I mean, I'm just having this thought now, so maybe it's not fully formed, but I wonder if it's like coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reflection on what is ordinary life and also this sort of nostalgia for ordinary life while we're also trying to return to it.
Yeah.
And I think there were also a lot of dramas that were nostalgic. And I think this struck me when I was watching 2521, and in the present day timeline, it's actually COVID. And so you're seeing Naido's daughter, like they're wearing masks when she goes to her recitals. You know, they have like the COVID checkpoint where they're like getting their temperature checks. And then you have this like nostalgic, beautiful, I mean, there's a lot of drama and pain in the 90s timeline too, but it's like it's framed as this like simpler
halcyon time
in a lot of ways. Exactly. And we did have a lot of those nostalgia dramas to the point where I actually like made a category in the Goguma poll about it, because I was like, oh, we had a lot of them this year. I mean, we usually have at least one, but so I don't know, maybe that's what's behind all these like slice of life shows that we had this year. I mean, we always have them, but I feel like they were in a higher
We
proportion
definitely
this
had
year.
more this year. We also had a lot of healing dramas. Something that I was seeing a lot of people talk about this on Twitter, that they were just like had it with like healing dramas. There were way too many this year.
They're healed enough. Thank you very much. Give me some more gore.
Yeah, but I think the reason the healing dramas actually they did quite well. Tomorrow did really well. If You Wish Upon Me did really well. So I think it's because there is a time you don't even know, but like you kind of want to cry. And some of these dramas, like through the storytelling, really excellent storytelling, kind of lets you go through that catharsis. And that's really helpful. For me, Tomorrow was really helpful. It has absolutely nothing to do with my life. None of the stories were relatable, but it didn't matter. I mean, aside from like the one with the dog, I mean, that just stabbed me in every part of my heart.
But I think the fact that it doesn't have to do with your life is a feature, not a bug, you know?
No,
like
absolutely.
it's really cathartic to be able to cry about somebody else's problem when you need to cry about your problem, but you can't, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really comforting.
You know, it's interesting that like we can understand that all of these stories are coming out as a process of grieving and as a way of processing what the last few years have been like collectively society, living in the pandemic and emerging from it. But I think it's kind of fun. I don't know if that's the right word. That this time last year we were processing this through happiness, the drama Happiness, which was so good.
So good.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I said what I wanted to say about it last year, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to put that as,
last year it was kind of the big moments were like Squid Game and Happiness, right? Which are very different ways of approaching this particular kind of existential problem.
Also, I don't know if this is quite a trend, but I saw quite a few dramas where friends realize that they have feelings for each other and like something finally happened. And one of the first ones this year was probably Soundtrack, which also had
fucking chic.
I wonder if that's also kind of in line with the trend of healing dramas, because that's like a much more gentle kind of love story. It's less high drama than well, I don't know about Love is for Suckers. I heard that kind of derailed in the second half. I only watched the first half. But like there's a safety in a friends to lovers situation that does not exist in a meeting a stranger and getting to know them and falling in love. Like there's just a different level. Like even if you have more investment and thus like you're more torn about like, oh, is it worth me ruining this friendship because of my feelings? There's still that like at bottom, like I love and trust this person and I know that they're not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
You might be wrong about that, but that's the assumption that you're going in with it. So I wonder if that like kind of fits in with the whole theme of gentler stories.
Probably.
This makes me wonder, given how dramas do tend to reflect on the things that happen in real life, especially in Korea. And like, for example, in the wake of the Seoul disaster, there were a lot of dramas that, although they weren't, you wouldn't necessarily be able to directly map the story onto the events. They were designed to process that grief and to, to put that kind of injustice on display. So I wonder if in the coming year, we'll see dramas that one way or another reference the Itaewon
incident. The crowd crush.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
This is it's not K-drama related, but I've noticed that in American films this year, there's been a lot of movies by big name Hollywood directors that have basically been a sort of like nostalgic love letter to movie making. And I've seen some speculation that either it's because they know that Hollywood is kind of dying in the way that they grew up with and loved. And, like Spielberg's Hollywood is not really, I don't think it's going to be around for very much longer.
It's
if it
Netflix
even still
as well
exists with
now.
the way that like, and like the way that people watch movies has just changed so fundamentally. Like not a lot of people know why they should go and see a movie in the big theater. And even if they do want to, it's only going to be for those like big event blockbuster type movies. And so like some people have said that that's kind of like their love letter to a dying industry. And other people have been saying that maybe it's just a way to sort of revive the feeling of the magic of movies that we kind of lost during the pandemic and trying to like, get back to it. So I don't know. That's something that is also kind of the moment that I was thinking about.
Yeah. Did you guys think that there was just like a distinct lack of corruption courtroom dramas this year? Like there were a few.
Oh, they were there. We just didn't watch them.
I just was not interested in watching them.
Do you think they were there in the same number as previous years? But like there were just so many workplace and slice of life dramas that it feels like in
what?
Proportion.
They were there, and Lee Kyung Young was in all of them. If that's even his name. God. There's a person you never need to see on screen again.
Retire, man. Retire already. Since nobody's going to kick you out.
You're already in disgrace. Just be gone.
Yeah. I definitely think that there were shows I would have watched if it wasn't for him.
He just turned up in every show that I was watching. And
Okay. Why is he so liked?
I mean, he's a good act. Like I liked him before I found out that he was, a sexual predator.
Yeah, me too. I really liked him.
He makes a very complex villain.
He plays a good villain. I guess now we know why, right? Like
that's what makes it worse, actually, because you look at him and you're like, you feel the sort of the magnetism of the likability that is sort of the soft sheath around the evil within.
Right. And you're like, oh, I see how you got away with, so much in your life.
Yeah.
And why am I being asked to be complicit in that by like watching you on screen? And it's gross. It's really
Well, that's a horrible note to leave it on. Can we leave it on a better note? Sorry, she says after ruining the tone of the episode.
Well, part 2 is going to be the Goguma Awards.
Yes.
So maybe we'll just look forward to yakking about that.
Let's do that.
So this is the 4th annual Goguma Awards, which is crazy to me that we've been doing this for 4 years. But if you don't know who Goguma is, he is our mascot, our yak, that is on all of our branding. And also I've created these mugs for us, which if you are on Patreon, we will post a picture of us with our mugs. I still need to get Boroma's to her.
Yeah, I'm the only one who's posing with just my regular bottle while these
a
guys
sad
are like,
face.
here are our amazing mugs, which have a yak on one side and has like a throwaway line I said a few years back, and these guys remembered. And Anisa, tell them how you made the mug. Because that's
so there's a place in our town called Paint Your Pot where you can they have like raw ceramic and you can just go and paint it yourself and then they'll glaze it for you in a kiln. And then like if you put glaze on and it makes and they fire it, it becomes this like really shiny kind of like how like finished ceramic.
It looks
if you buy
so
it from the store.
good.
Yeah, so we had gone a couple of times as like something to do, like me and my sister and my mom, and so they have mugs, and so I was like, why don't we have like, because we were thinking like we should have something that like I wanted us to all have like the same thing but in our that we can like use the same. So then I came up with this idea of like doing, and I had made a plan to visit Saya, which like if you haven't heard, me and Saya met in real life because I went to see her for a week in
We're
England,
still
and it was
friends.
exciting and amazing. And like despite Saya's unfounded worries, we still are friends, which like, I had
think
no
they were
doubts
very
about. I just want to put that out there.
Which was amazing. Like before Anissa, like a day before Anissa was flying out to UK, so I was like, will we even like each other when we meet?
It's like, this is not something that we need to worry about. Like, don't worry. It was really good.
The point is that Anissa handmade these mugs. I have yet to receive mine, but they all look so amazing. And what's the and like on one side of the mug you have our Goguma, and on the other side of the mug you have Homebody Slugs.
It says "Let's be Homebody Slugs," which is kind of a thing that we said once in like episode 67 or something, and we've just remembered it because it's very
it's perfect.
It's very us.
It's us. So so after that detour into Mugland, coming back. So that's Goguma. He's very important to us.
So that's Goguma. Yes, we love him very much. So I think was it last year? Was last year the first year, Borma, that we included listener voting?
Yes, last year was definitely the first year.
Yeah, and so Borma, tabulated listener voting, and it was last year it was basically like the top 3 dramas that listeners had enjoyed that year and the most disliked drama. So this year we decided to expand that into a lot more categories, and so we had a poll, and thank you if you voted in the poll. Thanks for voting. We were like, only a few people will I think I remember it being like, oh, like it's not like 100 people are gonna vote, it's gonna be a very small number. And then like when I closed the poll, it was 99 people, so very nice number.
Yay.
I was anticipating 20 people.
I was thinking like 40, But yeah, I'm so glad that people voted. Thanks for voting, because it's really fun, because then we don't know what the result is going to be, and that's cool.
Yeah.
So eligibility wise, I mean, we talked about this in part 1. It was very hard to like nail down what would be eligible, but it's basically the same dramas that were in the K-drama tracker that Parma made. So basically the main thing is that they're somewhat substantial in length, and they premiered between December 1st, 2021 and November 30th, 2022. So we're going to start with the kind of silly categories, and then we're going to end on the big categories like most beloved dramas and things like that. Oh, and I just wanted to also say that like if you want to see the full list of winners and, proportions and second places and all that, and categories, we'll post that later on the blog. So, but for now, we're just going to mention pretty much just the winners. So the first one is Craziest Premise, Best Execution. And the winner with 16.1% is
Alchemy of Souls, Part 1. I
I think part 2 wasn't eligible, right? So we just had to
It
make
wasn't
part 1.
eligible, but even if it was eligible, it would not be eligible.
We could leave that
Doesn't
to
deserve the same
2023.
accolades.
Yeah.
So I guess thematically relevant, the next one is Best First Half, Worst Second Half. And with 17.2%, far ahead of its competitors, is
Extraordinary Attorney Woo. Do I say woo or ooh? I don't know.
both accepted. Both answers are accepted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
agree
was
with that
the
one.
next drama was like 9.2%. And that was a business proposal. So it was not an intense
I think
competition.
that's because enough people didn't watch Again My Life.
Yeah.
yeah, it just wasn't as popular. So this one is very close to my heart. Most iconic heroine with 25%.
Is Nahiro from 2521, played by actress Kim Tae-ri. Oh my gosh, she was amazing.
She was so good. That would have been my vote too. Ugh.
Yeah. My vote goes to her too. People knew that she was a good actress. We all knew she was a good actress, right?
Yeah, she's a film actress originally.
Yeah. But with Mr. Sunshine, she kind of came to TV for us. But this was something else entirely.
And I remember having doubts about the casting when we
Yeah.
talked about this. I was like, really? A teenager? Kim Tae-ri? And she killed it. She
Oh
killed
my
it.
God. It was just like perfect in tone, behavior, body language, everything. It's unbelievable. Very well deserved.
Yeah. And in second, there was Park and Bin for Extraordinary Attorney Woo. That was like 16.3%. And then for Best Hero, which is also called the You Nice Keep Going Award. Thanks, Saya. That's a BTS reference if you didn't get that. With 18.7% is
Lee Jae-wook in Alchemy of Souls playing the character Jang-wook. I am saying this with more pep than I know is needed because I have no idea what the character was like, but
It deserves it. He deserves it.
yes. Though I did not watch beyond episode 1, I'm always here for some Lee Jae-wook accolades.
he's a good boy.
He was a very good boy
Hmm.
in Alchemy of Souls.
Lee Jae-wook, you nice. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yes, he is nice. Oh, question. I know this is the wrong place for this question, but I'm just going to ask because I really want to know. Is it still worth watching season 1 despite what happened in season 2?
Alchemy of Souls? No, watch both
Yeah.
seasons. Like, I'm
Okay.
complaining because I'm a hardcore fan, but I'm
okay.
going to like force it down everybody's throat for like years to come.
Okay, good. Because I watched one episode and then I stopped, but I was like, I'm going to come back to this. So that's good
Also,
to know.
if you are a Jung So-min fan, you absolutely like. If you even liked her in something before, you're not going to want to miss part 1 because she is stunning. She's so good.
Next is Peak Nostalgia. And this was, I got to tell y'all, a landslide. And 2 dramas took 80% of the votes.
Oh, wow.
More
Wow.
than 80%. Yeah. So we had, with 57.1%, we had.
25-21.
And then in second place, with 25.3%, we had Our Beloved Summer.
Okay. I was
Those 2
actually-
dramas took the majority of the votes.
That makes a lot of sense. That it did hit us very much and like
Yeah, I mean,
Teens.
2521 was the drama that I had in my mind when I created this award. But then when I started looking at the list of shows that came out this year, there were like 6 dramas that this could have applied to. So that was an interesting trend too. Okay, next we have great title, by the way, Saya. My Second Life Was My Best Life.
And the winner is
And with 84.3%, the winner is
Reborn Rich. Song Joong-ki killing it to the max.
I can't wait to start this show.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
And what's his name? Lee Sung-min, right? Who I think everyone has
Sung-min is
forgotten
so
by
good.
now. Yeah, I mean, everyone's forgotten that he was...
I have not forgotten. How dare you?
Misang?
Lee Sung-min will live in my heart
How could
forever.
you forget Misang? That's just not possible.
Yes. Manager O is going to live in my heart forever.
Yes.
But like the drastic like the change in like the mannerism and the looks in this character, what he's doing in Reborn Ridge, like you could almost not recognize him as Manager O.
you
in
don't.
Missing. I
You
know
don't
it's been
recognize
like
him at
8
all.
years.
Not
Yeah.
surprising because that man can do anything.
He's
Like,
magic.
No hyperbole.
Like when he was
yeah.
introduced, I didn't even realize he was a main character. I thought he was just going to die. But nope, turns out he's lead.
He's lead, and oh my god, he's like the co-lead. Like you would think that Song Joong Ki would be like the most interesting. No, it's Lee Sung-min. It's like when he's on the scene, and especially his scenes with Song Joong Ki, that's when you're like, oh my god, I want the next
like
episode
the
right now.
tension between the two of them is so amazing.
I have never had like a Harabuji, grandson pairing that was this like just
Oh my
full
gosh.
of charisma and like this.
The frisson. Yeah.
Frisson,
Yeah.
Why don't we just stop recording? I'll go start that show.
Do it immediately after we finish recording. Because once you go in, you're not going to come out.
That's why I've waited. I was like, I need to finish the other shows. I literally binge watched 6 episodes of Our Beloved Summer yesterday, so I would be able to. But anyway, the next one is Take Pity on Your Manager, which was about all of the behind the scenes entertainment agency dramas that we had this year. And the winner with 85.3% is
Shooting Stars.
Yay!
Shooting Stars.
You had to say it.
Which is not surprising. It was, yeah, of course. It was
was
the
good.
most entertaining
It was so
of
funny.
all the ones that came out this year.
And it was the most watched, I think.
Kim Young-dae was such a gift in this drama. I would not have pegged
was
him
great.
as having leading man capabilities, but he was very good. And
He was
yes,
like,
what's her name is always
He proved
amazing.
himself.
Lee Sung-kyung.
Lee Sung-kyung,
Yeah.
yeah, she's always good. The next one is most sincere depiction of grief. As we talked about, there were a lot of healing dramas this year. And with 40.3%, the winner was
Tomorrow. The thing with this year is it did have quite a lot of those suicide dramas, which, do we need a content warning for this? I'm not going to say any more than that. Yeah. It had this episodic structure, but it really worked. Like I'm sitting here still feeling the healing vibes coming down, but I don't really know how to talk about it. But I think maybe that's what it did. It allowed you to not need to talk and just work through your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, and a close second was If You Wish Upon Me with 29.2%.
So both of those did the same thing, kind of. Like they'd have these very difficult stories. The thing with Tomorrow is that it had a lot more sort of injustice-based grief. So people would be driven to the edge by awful things that had happened to them. And the drama did a lot of this sort of it's not your fault messaging, which I think a lot of us need a lot of the time.
Ah, you're right.
Like the world is a truly awful place and people can be truly evil. It is not your fault. You deserve to live.
That's an important message.
Something else I found that was really important in the drama for me personally, which was that we know that South Korea explores a lot of religious motifs, but one of them, an important one, being the fact that suicide is looked upon in a certain way in Christianity. And you had the main character, played by Rowan, constantly ask why the people who are pushed to that stage, why are they punished after death? Why is it that they have sinned when they were pushed to that point? And the drama tries to sympathetically give an answer. Now, it's never very satisfactory, but then I think the point was never to give like a perfect answer. The point was more to sort of like explore how it's important to help people so that they don't reach that point.
And to take the blame off people for, yeah, as you say, there's such a belief that, oh, if you've like been driven to that point, it's because of yourself. Like there's something that you could have done.
That it was a failing in the person who made that
Yeah,
decision.
and the drama was saying actually the failing isn't a personal one, it's a systemic one. It's society failing people. And it's even, religion failing people. It's structures that are bigger than individuals that are failing them, that are putting them in these places. And that's very relatable.
Yeah.
One point, something that I really enjoyed, like structures and religions sometimes calcify, right? Something that was being done through customs like 100 years ago are still sort of enforced today. And you kind of see that in Tomorrow, where you had like the same Grim Reapers doing the same job for hundreds of years. And they were like, well, at certain points, they were like, well, this custom needs to change. Like casteism, for instance, in South Korea, when that started societally changing, and how that was reflected in like the dramas, in the drama storyline, The Heavens There. I just liked that there was an acknowledgement that religion can and should change at pace with society as society evolves. And it was just nice. I've never seen that done before. And I was like really surprised that they even went there. So that was just something that
Yeah,
I
because it
noticed
opens with that premise, doesn't it? Are we talking about it too much in detail? Okay,
I don't
let's
think
leave
we've
it
spoken
there.
about it at all, but like, yeah, it was a really memorable drama.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to bring up because we did give, if you wish upon me, a whole episode. You can go listen to that. And on the same theme, sort of the same theme, comfort rather than healing, what was the best old school comfort watch with 83.3%?
It was a business proposal. And I heartily agree with this for at least like 60% of the drama.
Yeah,
Let's just
no, I
pretend the
agree.
last two episodes
Despite
didn't
how
happen.
disappointing it ended up being, it did provide a lot of old school
Yeah.
comfort.
And it was very funny.
Yeah, it was very funny. It was like genuinely laugh out loud funny. And especially in the first half, whenever they referred back to something that like a trope from like the early 2000s or 2010s, it was done in like the most
Like it subverted
wholesome
them.
way.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it subverted them, sometimes it was like the most wholesome version of that trope. Like the older drama that was playing in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily subverting everything, but there was this like fondness in the way that it was like so tropey, but with like this sort of understanding between the show and the viewer that like we love this trope. We're not ashamed of loving this trope.
Yeah.
It
exactly.
gives us joy, like
Until it didn't.
But it also like they tried to do it in like a non-problematic way. I don't know what happened in the second half because that kind of went away, but in the first half,
in the first half, it was so good.
Yeah.
And should get high marks just for that.
Absolutely. Also, this is not old school, but just the whole like Archaeopteryx sound every time he would call her.
It
And a
evoked
little like picture.
it evoked the comfort of the old school dramas while not feeling dated, right? Like it was very modern while having those emotions of the sort of a simpler time, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like all of us recognize that it's problematic when you have the very basic kind of Cinderella story. And like this show was like, yeah, but also let's acknowledge how much we actually enjoy this fantasy. It's
True.
okay. Like just eat your candy, It was fine.
Yeah.
It was candy.
Until it wasn't.
And then, but
Oh, yeah.
we've talked about that at length at this point. So
Yeah.
the next one is Top of Their Game Award, which I was happy to say was well represented with amazing women. But the winner with 24.2% is someone who is well overdue for an award from us.
And that is Kim Hye-soo in Under the Queen's Umbrella. And coming second with how much of the vote?
23.1%.
A very close second is Kim Go-eun in Little Women. And Yumi Cells.
Yumi
right?
Cells.
Does that
Yes.
count?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, yeah, you're right. I put Little Women here, but she was also in Yumi Cells this year, and I didn't watch part 2,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
she was amazing.
She's
in
been
part
killing
1.
it. Both of these two have been killing it for a few years. So long
Absolutely.
overdue for their gogumas, which I'm sure they'll be extremely honored by.
I think not only are they overdue in general for their performances over many years and their like incredible careers, but also I think this year both of them got to do really interesting roles, like the kind of roles they really deserve in dramas where they were not overshadowed by
Male lead.
the male leads. You know, like Kim Go-eun has done a lot of amazing show roles, but she's generally been like with big name actors and like male lead characters that really like sucked the oxygen out of the drama, like Goblin.
Lee
Yes,
Min-ho.
she was great in
Yeah,
that.
Lee Min-ho.
But yeah, Lee Min-ho, well, yeah, obviously. But even when the male lead, even when the actor was like deserving of that, taking all the oxygen, which like I don't think that Lee Min-ho was, it was still not her show. You know,
Yeah.
Goblin, literally, he's in the title. He's the title character. The king, too. It's
Yeah.
about the king, you know, like, so these were roles where, and Kim Hae-soo as well, like, she was great in Signal, but she ultimately was this supporting third
Yeah.
character.
But then there was that Ju Ji-hoon drama as well.
Hyena.
right?
She was
Hyena.
incredible in Hyena. Deserved a lot of awards for that. She was kind of the main, she carried that drama.
Mm.
There's something about Kim Hae-soo channeling her rage and intensity that just
Yes.
I don't know too many actors who can do it the way she can. She has like style.
Yeah. She also did Juvenile Justice this
Oh,
year.
yeah.
None of us watched
Yeah.
it.
Well, we were not game for like the premise.
Yeah.
Nope. I was like, Kim Hae-soo, I'm kind of disappointed that you're. I mean, I didn't watch the drama, but like from the previews, I was just like, this ain't it. This is not for me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not on board with a story about like judging teenagers and saying they're going to be rotten for the rest of their life because they got into the juvenile system.
Or judges becoming vigilantes. Like, dude, just be a good judge.
Yeah. That was the second part that was bad. That's right.
Like you've already got all the power, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right. The next one is our Scene Stealer Award. Snuck in and stole the show. And we had a lot of scene stealers, but by a landslide with 46.7%.
It was Kang Ki-young in Extraordinary Attorney Woo playing the effervescent attorney Jung Myun-suk. Oh my god, Myung-suki!
I mean, he's been stealing the show in everything he's done for many
Yeah.
years, but I think this was like the best that he's ever
This
done.
is
Just-
absolutely like his whoa, whoa.
Whoa, whoa,
And,
whoa.
I mean, even like he would have like these micro facial expressions, or like the way he would be like agree. Like sometimes when like Youngwoo would say something to him, and he was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know, like
that
just the way-
moment.
right, exactly, that little like
He would-
reaction where
he would
he's
be
like,
he would have something that would come to the tip of his tongue, and then he would like visually, like you could see him swallowing it down.
Yes. yes,
Oh,
so good, so good. I think he's up for a male lead role
Yeah.
next.
Good. He deserves
Which I'm very
it.
excited for. Also, I will never forget him saying, "Remove the underwear from your heart." And Secretary Kim, that was like best line of the whole drama.
Yeah.
I want to have to give a shout out to this other actress because I don't think we're going to talk about her at all otherwise. So in second place with 32.6% was So Hye-won, who plays the heroine's bestie's cousin in A Business Proposal. Was this amazing? Like, if you didn't watch it, she was
She was
you know,
so
this
funny.
friend cousin, not frenemy, cousin of me.
Her line where she was like, I have no chingu.
Yeah, like she always had like the same outfit as the heroine's bestie, and like they were like low key competing with each other, and then like she always would bring in like all this like ridiculous English into all her lines. Just so funny. Also, the actress who plays her is so cute and charismatic.
She's very, very cute. She's got a pretty substantial role in Alchemy of Souls, so I'm really happy
Oh,
that
really?
her career is taking off. Yeah.
Nice.
But not as that character. The business proposal character was a really great character that could really have its own show.
Yeah, that is so true. Like she totally could have had her
Yeah.
own show.
Yes,
That's
a spin-off
true. Yeah.
starring her. Yeah.
You know, do you ever find like sometimes you have these characters and like you put them to bed once that drama's over and you're just like, well, that's a waste of a character who could have been
Yeah.
used for much longer.
But she has so much versatility. Do you guys realize that she did a guest role in Attorney Woo?
She did.
Yeah, she was like this wife or girlfriend. Oh, she was like the owner of like a gambling hell type thing, and she helped
Yes,
one
yes.
of the like
She was the the
barista?
cafe owner. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
like she owned like the under the table coffee
Right,
business that
right,
was
right.
operating at the under the table gambling business.
Yeah. Like she's
And she-
just she that's exactly what I mean. Like she can do all sorts of characters, and she's getting a lot of roles. So I'm really happy that she's getting recognized.
Yeah, I want to see her as a lead in a comedy because
Oh.
her comedy chops are incredible.
I think she might actually get there. She is one of those actors. You can kind of see her, like the way she's choosing her roles is very strategic. She's slowly climbing to like that point. So fingers crossed that happens for her.
Yeah, so Hye-won, we're rooting for you.
Yes.
Mm.
The next one is perhaps my favorite category. Sorry for the snark, but you know me. It's most evolved actor, or what I really wanted to call it, finally, growth. And the most voted for person who won this category with 48.8% is
Nam Ji-hyuk in 25-21. I'm very happy to hear this because the last time I saw him, apart from Weightlifting Fairy, the first time I saw him, I guess, his idea of acting was acting with a capital A, was to look constipated all the time.
Was this School 2015?
Yeah, it was actually. He just,
Yeah.
so bad.
I was really blown away by his performance in 25-21. I was like, you know, like some people, you see them over many years and they're like slowly improving. And sometimes people are just not that great. They're green. They're really trying for a few roles. And then like they just have this breakthrough role. And like, I haven't watched his most recent stuff, but to me, it felt like this one was just like, you know, he was like jogging in place and then he just like sprinted over the finish line.
Agreed.
Like, without us even having any expectations.
Like I have always liked him, but you're absolutely right. He totally broke through some kind of like stagnation and he just reached another level with 25-21.
Do you think this is the character or will the skill translate into other roles?
It's hard to tell
I don't
right
think
now.
it's, you know, I don't think it's just the character because I also felt a difference in his screen presence and his charisma. And that's like
That's the
rare.
real
You know, like there are
thing.
people who have like charisma and screen presence and they can't act.
Mm.
And that's why they get these high profile roles sometimes because they have it, whatever it is. But
Imanu.
they haven't like developed to the he's in second place, by the way, for Pachinko at
I thought he deserved a
26.3%.
little coffee shout out at least.
Yeah. And I also wanted to point out that Kim Young-dae got 21% of the voting too.
Yes.
And he also did that thing where he just like emerged out of the being a wallflower.
He's much earlier in his career.
That's
So-
that's what I wanted to point out. He is very new though, so this for him it's not so much breaking out of stagnation. For him, it's like getting an opportunity to
Yeah,
really
flex.
flex. Like
Yeah.
Whereas for these other actually veteran actors, like Nam Joo-hyuk is a veteran actor at this point. He's been in
Yeah.
the industry like 10 years.
And Lee Min-ho is been coasting
Yeah.
on the success of Boys Over
For a long
Flowers
time.
for over
No,
10
City
years
Hunter.
at this point.
He's been coasting on City Hunter. That's what, like, he's just.
I mean, I guess, but he would never have gotten City Hunter if he didn't play Gu Junpyo.
True.
And that was not. Anyway, we don't need to relitigate my disappointment in Lee Min-ho. But I want to say, in Pachinko, he blew me away, and I was ready. I was like expecting him to be really good because I've been wanting him to play someone who was not the hero for a really long time, and it just seemed like a really lazy choice, either on his part or maybe his agency's part, of just being like, oh, like I'm the cool hero. I'm a human clothes hanger. I'm just going to look pretty and be the hero for the rest of my career. And I was getting really annoyed by that. And in The King, I just like reached my limit. And I was like, after 2 episodes, I was like, I'm out, boy. Like, you need to do
But the
something
thing
else.
is, The King was also the showcase for what he could do if he was allowed to be a villain towards the end, if you stuck around that long.
Well, no, because I was gone by
Yeah.
then because I didn't have that much patience. But in Pachinko, he got to like dig into that greasy, ugly, like complicated, because he has the charisma, and it was time for him to use that the way that like a villain uses their charisma. And it was such a perfect role because that's his whole character is like he manipulates the heroine into doing what he wants because he has this human clothes hanger type quality of like looking really good in a suit and a fedora, and like he's rich and he's like what a chaebol would actually be like in real life,
Yeah.
I mean, it's complicated by the whole colonial, situation. Of course, he's not at the top of the food chain because he's still Korean, but like a person with that much wealth and power usually doesn't get it because they're a fluffy bunny with a heart of gold and a secret pain in their past. They're usually just very cutthroat and they're willing to do whatever to get ahead in the world. And that's the kind of character that he finally played. And I was like, finally, I feel like he's been holding his breath and he finally started breathing. And I was like, now I can breathe when I watch you. This is so exciting. Okay. I know that was really long, but I need to get that off my chest. So the next category is most epic OTP, romantic or platonic. And this was a write-in category. So people were asked to choose the couple and then make their case. And so what I did when I was tallying the results was I just basically tallied who the most popular pair was. Well, there were two that were pretty close in tallies. So the most popular one by far was Nahido and Goyurem, the best friends from 25-21, but they didn't start out as best friends. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with this because it was just such an epic friendship. And it went through so many interesting phases. And I just so good. So good. I don't have anything eloquent to say. And in second place was Mudok and Jungkook from Alchemy of Souls, Part 1. For Nahido and Goyurem, most of the people who voted for them just put their names, which, I respect that. Nothing really needs to be said because we all know how good they were.
Some people, though, use the custom form to actually make a case for the pairing they were rooting for. And I really like these two that was for Jungkook and Mudok from Alchemy of Souls Part 1. First one is the progression they had stemming simply from a mutually beneficial agreement with an end date to becoming each other's most respected and trusted person was beautiful and poignant. This was by Elena, and I completely agree. These two were so... It was a partnership of convenience, but then it kind of morphed into a situation where they depended on each other wholly, and it no longer had an expiry date. It was great. The other one that I really love is when Jungkook challenges Mudok to choose what she wants, which is him, the same way she's been challenging him all along to get what he wants. And then something very momentous happens, which Ashley spoils what I want. This was also a really good case. That's true. I really love that throughout the first part. Mudok had been pushing Jungkook, really challenging him to excel. And then at one point when he realized that there was she had a mental block, especially when it came to trusting her romantic feelings for him, he challenges her to rise above them. And that was a really well-written scene. I love that. Yeah. Okay. There is a pair that I just want to give a bit of what do you call it? An
Kudos?
Kudos, honorary mention to. And somebody made the case for them, so I'll just read that out.
Oh, I was thinking of giving them a shout out too, because a couple of people mentioned them, and I feel like that was a surprising
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was John and Jiwon from Love is for Suckers. They stole the show with minimal screen time. This is very true, KD. You were not expecting these two characters who had very separated storylines to, first of all, to become a couple. I was so delighted, and they suited each other so well. But also to kind of sneak up and kind of become the most wholesome part of the show when the rest of the story was kind of going downhill. So yes,
Frabby wrote a great post about this, by the way, about Love is for Suckers.
Yes, she has an abridged review, and it was excellent.
One last shout out, because SG Wordy's response to most epic OTP was me and older dramas. 2022 was just not my drama year. And I think that holds true for a lot of people. So I wanted to give that a shout out.
Hard agree.
The next couple, I don't think we really need to comment on them, but they just are what they are. Soundtrack listened to on repeat by an extremely large margin. People agreed with me that it was Our Beloved Summer.
Yeah.
51.8%. I have to say, one person wrote in none. F, I hate ballads.
Oh.
That was a harsh burn. I honestly also agree with you. I'm not a ballad person, but I feel like there was a lot of non-ballad options for us to choose from this year, and some really great music.
K-dramas are a thing where you find yourself really big, like appreciating the kind of songs you never listen to. Like I hate ballads, and yet I love a lot from K-dramas. It lets you live with the song for a bit.
It like brainwashes you into loving the song because it brings you back to those epic moments from the drama where like you're like, okay, so then you have it on your playlist and you're listening to it in your car and you're like, objectively, is this a song that I would enjoy? No, but it reminds me of this moment when like the elevator door opened and they looked into each other's eyes and they were crying and then there was like, you know, confessions.
Like the songs from You're Beautiful are objectively not that great, but I still start hearing refrains.
Some of those Angel songs, I'm sorry, those Angel songs are like pop trash, but they're so catchy. They're so exactly what they need to be. They're perfect, but they're not like objectively good art, you know?
No, but I have listened to them so many times.
Yes. I know, listen to them more.
I will promise you.
Exactly.
Na, 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 na. Yeah. Anyway.
Hold on. But you know, when you sing the I Will Promise You song, I don't think of them being on stage. I think of Hwang Tae-kyung being in the bathroom trying to distract this guy. While they're like, by singing the song because he... Okay,
right, exactly.
I can't tell you why without spoiling.
I've watched dramas to the end because of one song.
Yeah.
Dramas
you have.
that I didn't think were that good afterwards. I sort of thought they were better than they were because of the music.
Again My Life. I finished watching Again My Life because I really liked that one cinematic sound that they had.
I
don't know why.
Yeah,
because it does made me finish watching.
It's like music. It sort of creeps in under your like logical brain, and it's conditioning, emotional conditioning, right?
And the best soundtracks and the best scores create like an atmosphere and a tone for the drama that really sometimes is more important than, you know, even the acting or the writing.
Yeah.
You know, like I recently found out that during the pandemic, there was a cast reunion from the Lord of the Rings movies, which are this year, last year, and next year will be celebrating their 20th anniversaries. And they actually had Howard Shore on on the call. And I mean, it was just this delightful Zoom call with all these people who have like gotten me through so many difficult moments in the last 20 years. I was like over the moon with joy to see these people, and they were so happy to see each other. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not K-drama related, but I don't know if it was Peter Jackson or one of the cast members who said that the soundtrack that Howard Shore created for this movie was like literally half the film. I think it was Peter Jackson. He was saying like it was half of the film.
Agreed.
And I agree. Like sometimes the experience created by the music is so deeply moving that it just lifts and then, I mean, I think that was the case with Vincenzo last year. It was already so good, but the music really was
operatic music
it just took you places.
And it's the music coupled with that sweeping vista. And I think I mentioned this like last year or something, like with Jiri-san, that there was one song that kept me in that drama to the end. And of course I realized much, much later that was Jin of BTS. See, I loved you before I knew you. But yeah, that sort of that visual grandeur coupled with that epic music, that's really something that gets us old sort of fantasy nerds really.
And It locates you in a place and time in a way that like very few things can do that quickly. And I think what's really telling also, I mean, this year, I want to shout out also the second and third place winners of this category, which were 2521 and My Liberation Notes. And My Liberation Notes is like so effective at creating that melancholy, gorgeous mood. But 2521 and Our Beloved Summer are very much tied into like the nostalgia, right? And the music, the way that it like brings the nostalgia, whether that's for, you know, the 2010s or for the 90s, and the way it like instantly brings you to that place where the drama wants you to be and keeps you there. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Song of the year. You were not given a choice except you could respond or not respond, but 70 people agreed with me that Christmas Tree by V was the best song of the year.
But it is 100% of the vote.
It is 100% of the vote. Yeah, because that was the only answer. I mean, this was kind of a joke category, but also in seriousness, I really felt like it represented our experience of the year in a way because, you know, I started watching Our Beloved Summer in December of last year and I finished it yesterday. So it stayed with me all year. I've also been listening to the music all year. But at the same time, like BTS has been with us this year in many iterations. They have been with us as a podcast. They have also been with us as like a broader global culture.
And they've left us. At least Jin has. Sorry, carry on.
Yes. Yeah, they're leaving for the military. It's a fitting tribute. I just felt like that was the only choice.
He just has that voice. Taeyong has that voice.
Mm.
Whenever I hear it, I think Velvet. It's like it's rich and full-bodied and classic.
Also, like whenever I sing this song like in karaoke, I can appreciate like the range of his voice because the song starts out so low and then the chorus is so high and you're like, this is a man with a voice that can go anywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And also the Christmas song that he just did, like he recorded in his home and published, and which in like 6 minutes of publishing got, how many was it? Like, Saya, I told you. Well, it was like hundreds of thousands of views.
It was nearly 1 million in like less than was it? You know what? There are people out there who know these numbers, so I don't want to get them wrong.
Yeah, I don't. But my point is, it was some insane, and it was a home recording of a Christmas song. And this was one of that old school, deep voiced Christmas song, like the stuff that you got out of like the 60s American.
Right.
You know.
I think it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Yes, that's one. And my God, I just like I love his rendition. Like it's not even like a cover where he's changing a lot. It's just that him singing with that voice. How did this become another BTS episode?
Yeah, well, we didn't get to that portion of the yak yet. Let's But this brings us to our last audience award, which was Create Your Own Award, which we had lots of wonderful responses, creative responses. We had in total 49 responses, so we're not going to be able to read all of them, but we did want to read like a sampling of some of the ones that we enjoyed.
So one of our favorite write-ins was from Diane, and she gives the most impressive idol doing acting award to, well, let me read you what she said. I'm torn between Red Velvet's Joy in The One and Only and SF9's Chani in Under the Queen's Umbrella. Joy's character could have been one-dimensional, but Joy played her so naturally and made her feel like a real person. Bimbotic characters seem easy to play. I didn't know bimbotic was a word. Cool.
It is now.
But to not have them be the bad kind of annoying is another thing. Chani's snarls and sneers in The Queen's Umbrella feel so well crafted. He is good at that. Again, his character could have just been angsty and grouchy, but you could really feel the evil simmering beneath his glare. Good job to them both. Because I created this award, I have decided both of them will get it. Yes, I agree, Dan.
Yeah, good call, Diane. That's what we do.
Exactly.
Chani, snarls and steers, I 100% agree about Queen's Umbrellas, but I was thinking he also did an angsty and grouchy character in Miracle.
But that I didn't love him in that.
He's also basically playing a version of himself in that, so less points.
Agreed, but my point is that, as Dan said, it would have been easy to make him angsty and grouchy, and like very clearly he can easily play that. He did it in Miracle, and then when you watch him in Queen's Umbrella, you can actually see
it's like the evolved version, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, like this is him acting.
Correct, because in Miracle he was just like
being himself, kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe a brattier version, maybe a less bratty. Who knows what he's really like? We don't know. No offense, Chenny fans.
He's a good boy.
He's a kid.
We will give him that. Okay. Next is Best All-Star Athlete from Jellybean. And the award goes to Mr. Goo from My Liberation Notes.
So great. I laughed out loud when I saw this entry.
She does not need to explain this. Mr. Goo most definitely is.
No, if you watch the drama, you'll agree. Yeah. It's just like the most unexpected but perfect award for this show.
Absolutely perfect.
And then from SA, we have the award for Worst Office Ever to Forecasting Love and Weather for the frequent assaults on colleagues with absolutely no repercussions. You got virulent sexism on top of it for free from the male lead and literally every male subordinate of the female lead. Yeah, this is why I dropped the drama after 2 episodes. Sad to hear that it didn't get better.
Glad I didn't watch it.
My mom actually finished this whole show, but she said it was because she really loved the weather forecasting stuff. And
that was good.
One of her favorite things about K-dramas is how they show you like
different jobs.
Yeah, like the behind the scenes of jobs that you've always wondered about.
I mean, I agree with you. There was a lot of sexism. I also agree with you, like the workplace, just random hitting people with no actual HR getting involved. That
just
felt
old school in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly. Except that despite all of that, I saw some value in the story they were trying to tell. It got very plodding, so the value kind of got lost by the end of the drama. But like Anisa's mom, I also really enjoyed the weather forecasting side of things. I could just watch like bits. I could skip through that drama and just watch the weather forecasting.
So next we've got from Tracy, the most I Belong in 2010 drama. Love is for Suckers. Such lazy and dated storytelling. Relationship dynamics like this need to be left in the coffin, where most writers don't even bother going close to anymore. Well said.
I completely agree. The first 4 episodes were really good, and then they just dove off a cliff after that. I was so optimistic. I made a YouTube video. Do you guys know how much effort it takes for my brain to churn out a YouTube video on something? And then they just were like, you know what? We will take this character who was like respectful of boundaries and very considerate and make him the worst kind of toxic towards the heroine. And the heroine will be like, it's all my fault. I deserve this. Yeah. The next one is from David, and the award is Best Use of the Time Skip Trope. And he gives it to Shooting Stars by having it at the beginning of episode 1.
So clever.
Yeah. I love this.
What? I didn't get it.
You know, they had that like 1 year time skip at the beginning where, Africa and all of that. But then it continued to have consequences for the story as the drama progressed. It wasn't used as a last minute conflict.
Oh, now I get it. Wow, guys, so I'm so sorry, David. My brain was not. It was just frozen.
For a second, I thought your screen was frozen.
Yeah, I was like...
I thought it was too. Yeah. So I didn't think about this, but I totally agree. This is very smart. And I think like Shooting Stars did a lot of this kind of stuff where, I don't know, they like subverted a lot of tropes without making a big deal out of it. Like, a lot of times shows will be like doing something and then there's like this big blinking neon arrow. Like, look, we subverted this trope. Aren't we clever? Aren't we? We know what you're thinking. We're thinking that too. And you're just like, okay.
I love your acting here. If only our listeners could see
with
it.
the finger guns. It's like the writer is shooting you finger guns and being like, I see you, K-drama viewer. But in this one, they just decided to make different choices.
Yeah.
And some of those different choices weren't good. Like Allison's award was drama that made me overlook some egregious and outdated story aspects because of the characters' charms. Shooting Stars, So Allison was talking about the whole Africa plot line and everything that was associated with that, which was like problematic. We talked about it on the podcast. And then also the hero threatening to expose himself to the heroine, which was horrifying. I've actually kind of blocked that out of my memory. And when I read this, I was like, oh yeah, that was really bad. But Allison said she still enjoyed the drama immensely.
We discussed both issues in that episode. But yeah, just like you, Allison, we agree. We went through it in our head. We had our reservations. We discussed it. We did all of that. And then we went on to watch the whole drama and quite liked it.
So, I mean, some bold choices, some bad bold choices, but the majority of those were good choices. And they just did them, they just kind of did it and it worked.
Yeah,
and
agree. You know why I didn't get the award initially, David's award, best use of the time skip trope? In my head, I was thinking of a time slip trope. And I'm like, where did time travel happen in Shooting Stars?
I don't think there was any time travel. Was there any time travel this year?
There was like, again, my lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, Tomorrow had time travel.
Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't watch Tomorrow.
Did it?
Okay.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
But it's not a time slip drama.
No.
So I don't think we had any time slip dramas necessarily this year.
The speculative sci-fi style of time travel, no.
Not like Sisyphus style or like Kim Bong-do style. What was that? What was the
Queen
thing?
and Huntsman.
Oh,
Queen and
Huntsman. Yeah, not that type of classic
I need
time
some
slip
more
type stuff.
time travel in my life.
Yeah, I really like time travel.
Yeah, me
dramas.
too. I realized this year for the first time, time travel is what I'm obsessed with across every language and every medium.
Interesting. Yeah. And we've had so many of them. Like they've been trendy in K-drama for such a long time.
Time travel thrillers, by the way. Not time travel romances. Those ones don't really do much for me.
Tunnel, Watchers. It's every time one of these comes
Isn't
out.
Circle also a time travel drama?
It's not cool. That's a
I mean,
parallel
come on,
timeline. Parallel
it's
timeline.
not.
It's
Yeah,
not time
it's
travel.
not time travel exactly.
But it has the same feelings. Yeah.
Actually, it's not time travel at all.
Oh, is this a good place
You
to
said
give
yes.
a shout out to our Sisyphus episode, which I suspect many people haven't listened to. But if you're interested in sci-fi in general, me and Borma have a very good discussion about K-dramas and sci-fi buried inside the Sisyphus episode.
Very worth listening to, even if you dropped out of Sisyphus after a couple of episodes or you didn't even watch it, like me.
And finally, from Molly, we have the best drama to recommend with zero context because it's too hard to describe. My Liberation Notes.
Yeah, you should watch it, Sai. I can't tell you why. But I agree. It's very it's hard to say. I mean, I can say what I loved about it, but it is hard to describe exactly what kind
This
of
is a
show
really
it
good
is
award.
because it's unique. Yeah. To wrap up the listener Goguma section, here are the big ones. So first, let's talk about the most disliked drama.
Dramas.
Yes.
There's 3.
So these ones, I mentioned these. I put 3 in here because they're all like pretty close together in terms of statistics. And I feel like we probably are not going to talk about these shows much otherwise.
No, pretty much like they're not on our list otherwise.
Exactly. So with 13.5%, you had Forecasting Love and Weather. And then second place with 12.5% was 39. And then with around 10%, Now We Are Breaking Up.
Who was in Now We Are Breaking Up?
Wait, I can't do that. Boo.
Who was in Now We Are Breaking Up? It was the gorgeous one. What's her name? Song Hye-kyo. Song Hye-kyo. But I can't remember who the hero was. But I know it was the Song Hye-kyo.
The oh my god, Gumiho. My roommate is a Gumiho actor.
Oh, okay. I know his face, but I can't remember his name.
I also
Jung
Kyung. Jung Kyung.
Kyung.
Jung Kyung. Yeah.
Well, what I was noticing in this list is that these were all big actress vehicles, right? So you have the Pang Min-young drama, you have the Son Ye-jin drama, and the who was it you said? Song Hye-kyo.
Song Hye-kyo.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that was because we had other big actress vehicles that were amazing.
Yes, of
so,
course.
Um,
But it's
But
a shame
39
that
was
they
really
have bad
I was so
dramas.
excited for that.
I was excited for
No.
a Pung Min Young drama that I could like.
Yeah, I was also excited for that. To be fair, I didn't give any of these dramas more than one episode. I didn't even start 39 and Now We're Breaking Up, but like the negative reaction to those was pretty immediate and pretty
And
widespread.
intense.
And
Yeah.
There were
I just, given how like overextended I was feeling anyway on K dramas, I just didn't bother.
there were some people who liked 39, like a small section, but they did. The exploration was of grief and also subjects matters like extramarital affairs and but it was done not very well, I think, was the most common criticism. Like it was done heavy-handedly. But also like the morality was a bit whack. So 39 makes sense. Now We Are Breaking Up was on my list probably the worst drama of the last year. And that was because much like Fabulous, Now We Are Breaking Up was positioned as this glossy drama. Like you have this photographer and this woman who I think she has an ad agency. She's does some marketing work or something, like she's into design. She's very capable at first blush, but then more you watch the story, you realize she's more of an the story we were expecting was of a mature woman who's at the peak of her success meeting this photographer and like them having a relationship, and like you were supposed to see the ups and downs of relationship. What we got,
Sounds a lot like Encounter.
I mean, yes, but not quite. It's like the age difference wasn't in any way a factor here, and they were not like she was not in a position of power over him. In Now We Are Breaking Up. What was annoying, super annoying. There were so many things that were annoying, but like the major things. The first one was she turns out not to be a woman at the peak of her career. She's apparently the one who's pretty much managing this entire company, but her friend gets the credit and she's kind of like an underling and she has to prove her worth, which is not a storyline you expect somebody of Song Hye Kyo's position status to take. It's just annoying.
You know, I didn't watch this show, but I feel like this is the Nuna romance problem, but in real life. By which I mean, the Nuna romance problem that I always bring up is that, like, if they have a woman who's much older and more successful and has some, like, more power than the hero, then they have to, like, bring her down and humiliate her in some way. Whereas in this case, it's, like, the mismatch. Even when I heard the casting news, I was like, that's a weird mismatch. Like, Song Hye Kyo with Jang Kyung. Like, not that I don't like him, but they don't match. Like, she's so much bigger than he is. Like, and so I feel like on a meta level, they're, like, doing this thing of, like, oh, like, here's us bringing Song Hye Kyo down from her actual status of being like a much bigger star than he is and more successful and more of a veteran and kind of like equal. And it feels kind of gross to me.
And Jang Kyung's character was sort of like a hidden famous photographer. Like he just walks around in, I think this was it like Paris Fashion Week or something. I don't know. There was some big Fashion Week thing was going on, and Song Hye Kyo's team lost their photographer. So she just grabs him and is like, "Do me a favor, do this photo shoot." And she's hovering over him the entire time, sort of doubting his abilities. And he turns out to have like these amazing, because he's secretly a very famous photographer that nobody can, get a hold of.
I hate that.
And then of course there is that one point where like she is trying to like nail this deal and it's not happening, and he walks in and basically saves it for her by being like, I will be a part of it only if you do the deal with her. Do you get a sense of why I hate this drama so much?
That was my main issue with forecasting Love and Weather too, was the Nuna romance problem. Yeah. You know what drama didn't do this and actually like leaned into casting a much older and more successful and veteran and more skilled actress against Jung Kyung was Search WWW, where you had an imbalance in their real life star power, but the drama used that to its advantage and did a really good job with everything about their relationship.
Completely agree. And clearly that can work really well. I sort of expected that kind of dynamic here, because if you watch the trailers, you'll know what I mean. It makes it seem as if Song Hye Kyo is, like this really confident woman who's like at the peak of her career. But when you start watching the story, it's drudgery to again watch someone who's like at her, first of all, at her age, who's apparently done amazing work and is recognized for it, but actually doesn't have any power. And it's not as if you are facing reality and this is a story about how, sad situations, but no, it's not one of those stories. It's a waste of time. And finally, the stupid thing that they did was she was in love with his brother and he died. And then they find that out.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, yes.
Glad we dodged
good
that
choice
one.
for the most dislike. You guys dodged that one. I watched 8 episodes.
You could have dropped it sooner.
I could have. I kept waiting for. I watched it for Song Hye Kyo. Like I like Jang Ki-young, but like not to the point where I would subject myself to a drama I'm not enjoying. I like Song Hye Kyo a lot. So, and also, yeah, fair enough. I watched entirety of Forecasting. I did love certain bits of it, but yes, it had a lot of flaws. I am not surprised it's on this list. Okay.
All right. Shall we move on to happier topics?
So at number 3, we had Extraordinary Attorney Woo as your third favorite drama of the year. That's how we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And
then in the second place, you have a tie between My Liberation Notes and The Red Sleeve as your second favorite dramas of the year.
And then for the number 1 drama, we had a tie between Alchemy of Souls, part 1, I guess, and 2521, which was also tied for the number 3, most votes for number 3. And we just had like a little discussion about whether we should put it there or not. It's just to see behind the scenes. But Parma, like, tell the listeners why
this is interesting.
You felt it was important to mention that it was also tied for number 3.
Because it's really interesting that for a lot of viewers, 2521 was the best drama of the year. And for a lot of viewers, 2521 was like, yeah, it was a great drama, but not the best drama. It appeared like with substantial. It was actually a tie between Extraordinary Attorney Woo and 2521 in the third place in terms of preferences. So, it's nice that I think 2521 is one of those dramas which actually got like a larger viewer base, like connected with a larger viewer base. And that shows in this ranking, like where is both like first preference and third preference.
Yeah. It's also interesting to do the awards this way because, I mean, this didn't end up showing up in the final results. But we had like a 45-50 votes. It was really interesting to see that no one had chosen Little Women as their number 1 drama, like not even a single person. And yet it was the top choice for number 2 drama of the year, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, that is.
And I kind of totally understand why you would make that choice. So that was interesting to observe as people were voting, like how things were changing.
Agreed. I also thought that recency effect would like change things. For instance, I did not think that the Red Sleeve would get enough love on this year's poll since it actually started airing last year and only wrapped up ending in like the first week of 2022. But it's your second favorite drama. I love that. I mean, the fact that when we really love a drama, our memory of it is just, it holds on to it for a very long time. So
Yeah.
Also, I expected Extraordinary Attorney Woo to get like a huge chunk of votes. I'm so surprised.
Well, I think the end of it let it down, didn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it did, but I'm surprised that and also the fact that it did it win like the best first half, worst second half. Yeah.
Yes, by a large margin.
Because when we were discussing it online, there weren't that many people who were chiming. Like there was a substantial section of the population who was like, "Why did it go that way?" But we felt like the odd ones out saying that the second half went adrift. It felt like there was a larger. Like the majority of people just loved it throughout. But the polling says otherwise. Apparently, at least amongst the people who were filling in our polls, you guys feel strongly, just like we do, that the second half went awry. So yeah, that is cool to see.
It's also an interesting case of like how much I think it matters differently to different people how a drama ends. Like not everyone cares. For me, if I don't like the ending of a drama, that really ruins the whole experience. But some people will be able to enjoy what was good about it, and then they're like, well, like the ending was kind of disappointing, but like most endings are disappointing anyway, so I'm not gonna like be bothered. I mean, my sister says that to me sometimes, or she's like, like most of the time I don't even finish dramas, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the way people watch things and how they rank what's important to them and like the overall quality of like what makes best, quote unquote, is so subjective, which is why this is fun, right?
Yeah.
So this brings us to the end of the listener Gogomas. Thank you so much for voting. This was like super fun to, watch the votes come in, to read the responses. We weren't able to talk about all of the write-in awards. We'll make sure to publish those on the website. So check that out. And then coming up next, we have our personal Gogoma Awards, in which we all chose certain awards to give certain dramas, and also our sort of year in review personally for each one of us. And then guest reviews, which we're really excited to share with you.
Yay.
And all of that will happen in the next episode because we really need to end this one now.
Yes.
So tune back in, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
And if you guys haven't been taking part, or I think a lot of people have been taking part in our Twitter review #game Dramas Over 2022, even if you're not taking part, click on the hashtag and read other people's reviews.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
lovely reviews.
Yes, and we did it a little differently. So if you've participated in previous years, basically we just did like one review a month for the whole of December. That was #Dramas Over 2021 if you want to go back and read them. This year we thought we would do something like a little less intense, and we provided prompts. So every week on Friday in December, we provided a prompt for people to respond to. And if you click on Dramas Over 2022, #, you can see those. And you can also just see them, like we've been retweeting them from our account. So you can still participate, even if it's not December anymore. It's not tied to December anymore, which is like the nice thing. So if it's like January and you still have thoughts about what you watched in 2022, respond to the prompts. We would love to hear what you think.
Or if it's July and you're listening to this like 6 months later, completely fine.
Absolutely.
Or, 2
just
years.
tag us because we won't be clicking on the hashtag in July. Right now, I've been clicking on the hashtag every day just to make sure I don't miss anything.
Also, a really good way of finding out what like the best and worst dramas of 2022 were directly from like people who are like just everybody, not just us, not our own very narrow ideas of the best and worst, but like from a much broader range. So a lot of people would like, some people love some dramas, and then you have some other people being like, hey, no, but like this stuff was like really off about the drama. And that is so much more fun, like when you're reading through the hashtag. So yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, we always talk to each other, so we know how each other feel, but we really love when we hear from you because it makes the whole fandom experience so much more rich and enjoyable.
So where can they
is true.
find us on Twitter?
They can find us. You can find us at Dramas Overflow on Twitter because hasn't quite burned down yet, so we're still there. You can find me on Twitter at Anisa Khalifa _
You can find my Twitter where I'm not there very much at Not Now Saya.
You can find me at The Drama Notes. And you can find Dramas Over Flowers on Instagram at dramasoverflowers _. You can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. And also, don't forget, we have a newsletter, a really, really nice newsletter, and we don't spam you. Link for that is down below. We send out freebies sometimes and announcements and like just fun stuff. Check it out.
Yeah, speaking of fun stuff, if you are one of our amazing, appreciated, and beloved patrons, don't forget to check out the voice note diaries we've been leaving nearly every week, which are silly or deep or
Both,
analytical,
sometimes.
depending on who you listen to.
Yeah. Those have been really fun to create.
Oh, and so also you can find us on Facebook. Just search Dramas Over Flowers, and our website is at dramasoverflowers.net.
And Dramas Over Flowers is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.
And
that's it, guys. See you in the next episode.
Yay.
Bye.
This cannot be one episode. This is too long.